Somebody gave my daughter a CD. It was so hilarious. They said, "Oh, here's a CD. This is your dad when he was in his boy choir." She looked at it. She's like, "What's this?"
Nothing. Doesn't that make you feel great? Tomorrow's episode, payphones. You know, he's got a title that I sometimes disagree with because he calls himself the last, where, to be quite honest, he is the only ringmaster, Johnathan Lee Iverson, ringmaster for over 20 years of Ringling Brothers, Barnum Bailey, the greatest show on earth. You've worked with the Bernardo Circus. You've done a bunch of other stuff. You've done speaking. You've done singing. You're from New York. Thanks so much for tuning in. There's your life story. So, sir, good to see you.
I appreciate it. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for having me on.
So I was able to meet you back in 2001 when I was playing some of the shows there under the tutelage of the great maestro Brett Barlow, who was, always salute the man there.
Absolutely.
And one of my first like favorite memories of you were introducing the band, and as you were walking through, you're talking to the crowd, and I mean, you were just so authentic. I mean, and this is 2001. This is before authentic was like one of the buzzwords on the internet.
Right.
Probably before the internet in general, but you were just so authentic with the crowd. And the thing that made, I remember everybody on the bandstand laugh is you stopped and you just looked at a person and you said, "They sell beer at the circus?" Now, you had only been in for a couple of years at that point. You were still on the early side of your career, but it was so real, it was so authentic. And that, I will never forget that. But I'll also won't forget your kindness and your generosity and just your hospitality. When I was there for the short time that I was, it was great. Everybody's were, and you just, that expanded right through, unfortunately, until 2017 when they decided to go different ways. But long intro to say, how are you, sir?
I'm blessed. I'm wonderful. I'm in this part of my life where as long as my family's fine, I'm fine. I realized, of course, during this interesting episode we're all contending with, really just the real important things in life, honestly, are really just to, take care of the people you love. And, I think that's really, in my opinion, that's the highest, that's the mountaintop for any of us. Take care of the people you love and try to be as much of a light in the world as you can, in the broader community around you. I mean, I think if we just practice that some more, I mean, we're getting a crash course in the golden rule, so to speak. And, and we're seeing it's not as easy to apply as we thought, but, we're coming to it. But right now I have my family around me. Everybody's healthy. They're happy. And that's really all that matters to me.
Speaking of love, if I remember history correctly, sir, you joined the circus, Ringling Brothers, as a bachelor, handsome, sly, young, and then something happened after a few years. Or talk to me.
Brazilian imports, man. It's so funny. When I joined, I fully intended to, I was like, oh man, this is a sweet gig. The fellows were always so generous, and they were very open with me about their desire for me to stick around as long as I cared to. And so I was like, why not? Obviously, you're young and, you're in that place in your life. And, to have a job title, Ringmaster, I just thought this is a great pickup line,
Sure.
And everybody around you is exotic and new because, the world is there, it's essentially, you have access to it, and, you're new to everybody. And so, it was a lot of fun. And it's so funny. Mr. Fell always loves to tell me about this. He said to me, we got you your wife, because, I basically sort of begged him after my first tour. The show was awesome. Living Carousel, beautiful show.
Incredible.
Beautifully done. Great cast. But I just felt sincerely, I was like, we don't have enough women on this show. And it wasn't for, my wild oats.
Sure.
Honestly, it was really, I just always had this belief. My mother always taught me, women they're like the heartbeat of a home. And I always felt like, I always like a ratio of women 2-to-1, because I don't know, I think men behave a little better. As strange as that sounds, I think, too much, we become a little bit too contentious, so I figured if we had some more women there, it would work out much better. And it did, honestly. I mean, the Bo and Bello tour, they brought over for the first time Brazilian dancers, and it was wonderful. They were so spirited. They brought a new energy to the show, which their culture is just a celebratory culture. So it really lifted everyone's spirit. And so, of course, I got caught in the wave, and with the dance captain who came over with them, and she has so much responsibility. And I have to admit, I was attracted to that part of her. Of course, she's very attractive. She's gorgeous and what have you. But I really like the fact that, she was a leader. And, it was interesting to watch, and we connected. Not even, it was funny. We connected in the summer of that first year of that tour, the Bo and Bello tour, 2001, because we were kind of like, just circling each other throughout the year. And it's so funny because the circus is such a family where people learn of each other really quickly. So it was like everybody was pulling us together or something. I mean, I remember she was taking her promo photos with the great Hans Klutmeyer.
Yeah.
And, then he calls me, I'm just walking past, and he calls me over and said, why don't you get in the pictures with him? And, so, and we had fun. We ended up doing this beautiful photo shoot. And this was way before we even thought of being an item. We just was just flirting and having fun. And I mean, this crowd starts gathering. I'm like, you people are crazy. I'm like, I'm a young, crazy guy. It's not going to happen. But, we started to get to know each other. And, some years later, it's her, and we have our 2 children, and it really worked out. It's just so funny, I mean, so many people foresaw it, and it's worked out thus far. I think we're going on year 19.
Wow.
This year, yeah, it'll be 19 years.
Well, I mean, she certainly is a person who has kept you together. And then she went on, I know from her role in front of the spotlight and on the performing in the rings into the management. And I got to tell you this funny little quip about an interaction I had with her when that accident actually happened in Providence.
Mm-hmm.
The medical staff, obviously, you had such great words for the Providence Fire Department, the first responders, the folks over at Rhode Island Hospital, and the people at the Dunk and everywhere. Just it worked out as best as it could for the situation, and thankfully, everybody recovered. The reopening of that show a week later in Hartford, Connecticut, I was there that night, and there was a gentleman who was on your staff, Kevin Capretto. I might be saying his last name wrong.
Yes.
But he was assigned to stay in Providence, and as the girls went through their rehab and their hospital stays, he was kind of he was the go-to person.
Mm-hmm.
And me living in the area said, look, anything you need, just give a shout. But on that reopening night, we all went out afterwards just to grab a bite to eat. But we were in the show office, and there was a printer there that he needed to take back to his hotel in Providence. And I'm standing there like an empty-handed idiot. So I said, well, I can carry a printer. I'm pretty good at that. So I said, I'll carry the printer for you. So I'm standing there with the printer. Your wife comes in, and she didn't recognize me, doesn't know who I am right away. She goes, where are you going with my printer? I'm not, it's his. It's okay. But she is on top of it. Nothing gets by her. Nothing gets by her. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, we live with that every day.
Yeah, well, sainthood, my friend, sainthood. That's what she's going for. But you mentioned your mom. How is mother doing?
She's great. I mean, my mother is like, it's so funny. she's like the most low maintenance person on earth. There's no pretension whatsoever. She's not a prima donna, and she's a Southern belle, but she, I think she says it to us every day. She's like, this is a gift for me. She loves to just take care of everybody in here. She loves, her grandchildren, they're like, she's their partner in crime. They're all little mischiefs. I think there's something about becoming a grandparent that like allows you to revert back to some of those mischievous ways. They're so funny because they're junk food junkies. They're both, they're just junk food junkies, and she brings all that stuff in for them. And, they have such a wonderful relationship. We actually lived with her for a time after we left the show the first time we left. And it's just, to me, I always thought that was such a great gift and advantage for them to be raised with her. She would come and visit us on the road and travel with us on a train occasionally. And just to have that, multi-generation there. And, again, she, like my mother-in-law, we really hit the jackpot in mother-in-laws. I tell my wife all the time, and it's the same with my beautiful mother-in-law in Brazil. Mm-hmm. They are so non-invasive. They are beautiful, strong, giving women who have just given the best of their lives to their children and their grandchildren. And, again, they're mischievous with their grandchildren. It's just so funny to watch that each grandchild has their own unique relationship with them. And it's really a beautiful thing. So it's been just a soul-filling gift to have her around, as always. But that's, I've been blessed like that my whole life with her, just as my mom, growing up. She is literally the foundation of all of it. I think back on it now, it's really quite miraculous. I often call my mother a sociological genius because, the way she would instruct me, even when I was a baby, the things she would say that just really would build my confidence and really just so I could go out into the world. A lot of that, really, that's the bedrock of who I am till this day, and so many things from just who we are as people, our faith, everything. It all started with how she approached life and passed it on to us and continues to share it with her grandchildren. So it's been, having her here has been just an extra gift.
That's awesome. She's bringing the junk food, but from what I understand, you have done a good job at turning away from it. So I understand the mantra for you has been, cover your mouth, wash your hands, wear your mask, and hit the weights or hit the treadmill, because you've gotten into bikini condition for the summer.
It's Sean T, man. I got that guy, man, from Beachbody. Was Sean T. He has So when I was on the road, it's so funny. The great Andre McLean, mm-hmm. America's favorite cowboy,
sure.
who would also become a wonderful ringmaster himself, great friend of mine. But Andre McLean is such a wonderful pest. So we're on the road, and it came to my attention there were certain performers who had started this workout program called Insanity. And so I decided maybe I'll do it once. So Andre taps into my doggone ego. So, man, you're not gonna go through it. Well, then I had to go through it. And so, it was basically a good portion of the show. Everybody went through this Insanity program, and it is insane. It's like basically 40 minutes to an hour each workout. It's just crazy. It was very intense. But it was encouraging because, you had so many people who were with you doing it. So we went through the program, and, then I think he developed this new one called T25.
Okay.
And which was, intense, but just less time and you can get things in. So later on, I bought that, and I would do that occasionally along with some other things just to stay pretty steady. And then I joined the gym and what have you. But when this COVID-19 hit and we're all locked in, of course, I can't go to the gym. It just popped into my head. I dug into some boxes. I said, yes, the T25. So I opened up my garage, put the car outside. And so I've been just doing the T25 program. And, At Sean T, boy, he knows what he's doing, man. I mean, it really gets me going, and it's been great. It corroborates my vocal health as well. And
Sure.
so, I rediscovered things within myself physically, and it is vital. I mean, the older you get, I'm not young and pretty. I'm still pretty, but I'm not, I'm not as young anymore. I laugh about it now. I look at my kids. I mean, they can eat anything, and it just burns off. And they're so lean and incredible. They just bounce from everything. And I was like, I used to be there, and I'm in that stage now. I'm in my 40s. So anytime I see, some of these younger guys out here and they're working out and they look incredible, I mean, the exercise science they have going now is just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But I always tell them, I always try to mentor them and let them know, please keep it going. Because when you cross this threshold, there'll be stuff happening.
Life comes at you fast.
Yeah, but it's great, man. I feel great. I feel accomplished, I mean, it wipes me out, but, I feel like, okay, I'm doing something with my day. And that's what I always share with a lot of people going through episodes like this. One of the things you don't want to do is get stuck. It's cool to relax and, occasionally be still spiritually and mentally, but physical activity does play a really great role in progressing you and, just putting some energy behind you for whatever else you want to do. It creates mental clarity. It does create a whole lot of confidence, especially to see results happening with your body. And it just helps you to, forge ahead and become more creative. And I think that's really how other ideas started sprouting. Because, I just grab myself out of the bed in the morning. It's painful. I'm aching a little bit here and there. But, the video, the T25, is set up so wonderfully well because you can tell this guy is so well schooled in what he does. And he's all about form. And he always has a stretching component. But I also, occasionally I'll do there's the gentleman, Rodney Yee, and he has his yoga. And I had those, and so he has like 20, 25-minute yoga workouts that I also do as well, which are great. I'm terrible at it, and I tell people, listen, it doesn't matter if you're terrible at it, be terrible at it, but you know what? You can still benefit, especially if you're consistent. Doesn't matter if you don't get in the form correctly all the way, whatever. You don't have to be, you don't have to be a circus performer yet. Just do it. Just get involved. Just do it, and you'll actually, it'll benefit you in more ways than you think. So, just get out there and move.
Sure. Well, this whole COVID-19 and the whole scenario with this, how we have to live differently and adjust what we're doing on a regular basis. You went through a major life change a couple years ago as the show closed, and so you almost, your whole life has kind of prepared you up until this point. I mean, you lived on the train, you lived with the group of people, you kind of had your little bit of social distancing and isolation there, but you were with the same people all the time. But in 2017, you had to, take a step back and kind of retool and do some different things. You've done amazing things. You have not sat idle. You have not let any dust, collect. You've been, you were working with different performing groups. You've been speaking. You've been doing a bunch of different things. What has that been like as far as since 2017 into now and then going forward? What has it been like for you as far as you're really tapping into, because you're just I don't say this to blow smoke at you. You're a deep pool of talent, just yourself. What has that been like for you as far as finding that voice and expanding what you do?
Well, it's funny. When I was in 4th grade, I remember I was supposed to be learning how to swim. And so, they took our class to this, I think it was a YMCA, I don't know.
Sure.
And the swim instructor had this big old pole he put in the pool, and it was like 12 feet. Back then I was terrified of water. I was like, Yeah. And I remember being so scared, I just wouldn't go in. He couldn't convince, I just wouldn't go in. There were other kids who knew how to swim. They were borderline lifeguards. And I never forgot that. because I really understood how paralyzing fear could be and how life-changing it could be if you're not careful to nip it. And eventually I learned how to swim and what have you, but that stayed with me. And so when this sudden change occurred in my life with the end of my career with Ringling Brothers, I was back in fourth grade at the edge of the pool again.
Sure.
And it was really a simple choice. I could freeze or I can dive in.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, I'm still in the water because obviously the peril is the risk because you don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy and excitement is the what if, what am I going to find? There are things I know I can do without thinking about it. But I'm interested in these new things that I'm now combing and finding. And that's really what growth is about. I call it a pruning season. That's what we're in, where basically shrubs and overgrown branches and things and that which is familiar starts getting cut away. And, life will do that. We're on an evolutionary trek. In my faith tradition, we call it pruning, where God says, I'm gonna cut things away out of your life. And it has nothing to do with how great you are, how good you are, or how sinful you may be. It's just, life is about producing. It's
Sure.
about being fruitful and growing. And it's not always easily embraced, but it's just so necessary. And I think it was somewhat of a gift because, to be quite frank with you, of course, anybody could get comfortable in a setting like that. I mean, it was the perfect job, especially in entertainment. I mean, there was nothing really I could have asked for more. I had my whole family with me. I was getting a wonderful paycheck on time every week, benefits, and I was doing what I love to do. I was, I was a joy peddler, and I had all these fabulous relationships, and I had status, and it was unusual status. I mean, there's nothing better than saying, hey, I do this odd job that's pretty fabulous. And I mean, it's the conversation piece.
Sure.
And so you get comfortable,
Yeah.
but I really do. And I could feel it leading up to the end of that, change was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And comfort, really, I've learned the hard way that comfort is, in fact, it's actually much more devastating
mm-hmm.
than hardship,
mm-hmm.
much more devastating to you than hardship. And it's not to say you can't enjoy or be at ease somewhat with the things you accomplish or where you are in your life. I mean, I think there's a time and season, but you have to always understand the world is round, it keeps spinning, and it is designed in a way where you have to keep progressing.
Wow.
You have to keep progressing. And so I'm grateful. I am, as you said, I've been speaking more. There's been demand there. I've had the fortune of still, being able to put on a top hat occasionally. I've done other professional hosting gigs as well that I've enjoyed very much. And, I've been able to revisit opera again and perform with Opera Orlando and things like that. So to have those various different avenues to explore has been wonderful. And most recently, I don't know, it was so funny. I was wrestling with the idea for a good week or so. I was like, I need to do something while I'm locked down here because I literally wasn't really doing anything. I said, but I have to do something. The best thing you can do, as a friend of mine, is Sandra Scheller, who's the author of Try to Remember, Never Forget. She says, as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, the thing you learn about moments like this is to give. And, she's a designer and dance. She's like this uber talented person. She's like an award-winning mind. It's so her life is incredible. But she said, she sat down, got to her sewing machine, which her mother taught her. And she's like, I made over 3,500 masks,
wow,
or what have you. And, it prompted me. I said, well, I know there's something I can do, something I can give to people. And so that's where Ringmaster Storytime was born.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I mean, I bet people would like that, to be able to gather around and hear the Ringmaster read their kid or their families a story.
Sure.
And it's been really successful. People, every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my Facebook fan page at Last Ringmaster, people just gather around. It's not very long, of course. It's about 20, 30 minutes. I go in there, we congregate, we read the story, there's some music playing. I may sing a song or so at the end of it. And I'll promote, certain causes that I invite people to, look into. There's a wonderful cause called Be the Match, where I encourage people to join the bone marrow registry.
Yeah.
It's the fight against blood cancers.
Yep.
So, I've done it myself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful cause, and I've invited others to, join. So I'll use that moment to do that. And so it's given me somewhat of a new voice, a way to take advantage of my pedigree. I don the top hat and tails in a whole bit, and I get into that personality, and it's a lot of fun. Off of that, also, I finally created this wonderful talk show. I'm in episode 4 of it, and it's called In Centering. And I love having wonderful conversations with people, and it's forced me to actually revisit the great relationships I do have. I mean, there's so many fantastic people I've been blessed to cross paths with, like yourself, and I've been interviewing so many wonderful people. One of America's most favorite, I call him America's favorite ringmaster, Kevin Bernardo's, of Bernardo's Circus, and he was my first.
Brand new daddy.
Yeah, he was my first episode, and he was so, Kevin. I mean, he's like good Lord, he's like a walking novel or something, And he was so gracious, and he was my first episode, and we talked about his triumphs and trials and building his business, and how he is building the Bernardo Circus, and how he's adjusting as a live entertainment specialist and professional and producer in wake of COVID-19. That's been the big conversation, as you can imagine. Sure. With a lot of live entertainment professionals, and how are we going to restructure our lives? How are we going to present ourselves now? And it's interesting because he's such a positive guy, so it forced him, he said, to really diversify how he actually expresses the brand of the Bernardo Circus. Sure. And it was a great conversation. My second episode was with a wonderful circus veteran and author, who is just an amazing human being, William Fortune, who I had the privilege of meeting maybe a week or so prior to us having the interview. He's just great. I mean, this guy's been on Cirque du Soleil and Ringling Brothers. He was with Big Apple Circus, and they had their hospital. The clown, I forgot the name of it, but he used to clown with them. He did a lot of acrobatics. He was a stuntman in Hollywood and whole bit. He's written several books on, just a lot of inspiring, uplifting subject matter. Wonderful guy. Of course, I interviewed Sandra Scheller in her work that she's doing out in San Diego. She, in tribute to her mother, who I had the great privilege of meeting and knowing. Beautiful woman. I mean, just, you wouldn't, if she didn't tell you that she was in the Holocaust, you wouldn't have known, because she was such a light. She was just such a pleasant woman to be around. And the woman survived 3 concentration camps and Dr. Mengele 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And she wrote this book, Try to Remember, Never Forget, which became a sensation in her part of the world, Chula Vista. She now has a wonderful exhibition that I hope goes national, called Ruth. She is an abbreviation of her mother's name. What she did is Remember Us, the Holocaust. And so it's a exhibition at the Chula Vista Heritage Museum at the Chula Vista Public Library, where it displays, the stories of various Holocaust survivors, mainly in that area. So it's just a wonderful thing. She talks about her life as well, but it was really centered around, that experience and how relevant it is now. And my recent episode was with a beautiful couple in the theater world. They're this gorgeous Filipino couple, Albert and Esther Barroso Garazon. And they I worked with them years ago on Miss Saigon. And we talked about their journey as Asian American actors and, their commitment to their church community. I mean, they have this incredible church they're part of that, does full out orchestra concerts at Lincoln Center, and they were just so wonderful and pleasant, but they've been, they're fitness gurus. They're also, they're advocates and activists with the campaign Racism is a Virus.
Okay.
Esther, she actually had a really terrible encounter in the streets of New York. Some guy came and literally spit on her. It was just terrible. But, they're very strong people, and they shared that experience with me. They were gracious enough to, and then they were gracious enough to share what they're doing to not necessarily combat, but to actually lift people who have dealt with similar things. And that's what they said to me in this interview the other day. It's really powerful. They were saying how when that happened, they were very grateful it wasn't worse. But they also said they were just blown away by the amount of support. And more importantly for them, how many other people felt emboldened to come forward and talk about their experiences, not just, isolated incidents or incidences where they've encountered ugliness, but just throughout their lives, certain isolations and things like that, the challenges they've had. And it's been something they worked on, and it's been wonderful. And, so those are the types of personalities I've been speaking with. And I just like it, I realize how varied the people are in my life. And it's wonderful to hear their stories and to get it out there. And, to have, I think my main goal now is really, you have to pump out as much light into the world as you can.
Sure.
You have to put out as much light as you can. And so that's what I'm doing with programming like this. I like the fact that it's mine. It's something that I can work with, and I'm learning, terminology and technology and things like that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. You have your bumps. I'm going, boy, I am not as smart as my kids, but it's been fun.
Around. Well, yeah. So it really, that right now is available on your YouTube channel. The Ringmaster Storytime is available on your Facebook. And so we'll link to all that stuff there, but it really sounds like you've taken your abilities as the Ringmaster for a show that was contained to an arena. And now you're just showcasing these amazing acts and these. You described it one time as being the Ringmaster. You were the super fan of the performers. You are now the super fan of all these people doing these amazing things out there.
Absolutely.
As they're pivoting and as they're adjusting and going through. And I'm excited that you're going to be bringing it into podcast form as well, which is great. I've been so excited for that. I told you years ago, like, JLI, get a podcast. It's going to be great. Trust me, you'll do wonderful. But I'm really excited for you. Hey, you never know. Spotify could offer you the same deal they offered Joe Rogan. Just going to say,
Yeah, right. We all wish we were Joe Rogan right now.
And when that happens, just remember you're
absolutely
your short friend up here in Little Road.
Not without Ben.
Well, it was great talking with you. As you progress now, obviously, as corporations start to retool and get back up to it, you've spoken at a number of corporations. Hey, if you can make the most out of situations and handle different situations that you did in your many years at Ringling, you can certainly speak to a lot of that in presentations as well, and people can reach out to you through your website.
Absolutely. And, I'm actually crossing my fingers that I was hired for a major speaking engagement this November with ASHA, which is the American Speech, Hearing, and Language Association.
Okay.
And so their major convention that they have every year, they're having it in San Diego, and I was privileged that I was invited to actually give the opening keynote. And that's going to be in November. As far as I know, it's still happening. And and I'm actually going to be speaking on reframing your life. They heard one of my talks at Harvard about, the adventures in maybe in the detour, and just about change and how to actually, comport yourself in change, and how to build yourself up with that. So I'm working on that talk, but I do feel like I'm going into that direction that maybe, perhaps, who knows, I might end up being one of those people with the glossy smile that you see pop up on your social media feed. Again, it goes back to just being a light. And I think, that's what it comes down to. You learn, and then you earn, and then you pass it on. And if I'm privileged enough, if someone thinks whatever I am or whatever I've done is of value to them, I'm humbled by it. I am definitely humbled by it. And if I can be of help in that way, whether it's a major corporation, whether it's a schoolroom or an after school program or whatever, or a few kids on the corner who, I may have to grab by the ear and say, put down that reefer, son.
You gotta do.
Yeah, whatever works, it's just one of those things where, you're just using, I'm just using tools God gave me. I'm also doing some voiceover work now. I finally got a voiceover rig.
Great.
And so I just recently I did it's so funny, relationships. I just did the opening for a colleague's podcast. They called me and said, we want something real Ringmaster. Could you record something? So it was nice. It was a nice little piece I did for them. And so that's something I'm looking forward to as well. So, and that's, one of the things that my wife and I, we've been discussing is really, how do we dig down into what it is we are and use it to the best of our ability, to not only benefit ourselves, of course, you want to eat, but most importantly, you want to be stimulated in your work. You want to have the kind of work where you don't feel like you're working, where you can stay up, you can stay up all night doing this thing because you enjoy it. It brings you a sense of joy, and you're doing something you're giving something of value to those who pay to listen. So that's where we are, and it's progressing slowly but surely. And I'm going to take your advice and the advice of my wife as well, who's been beating me over the head every day as long as we've been together. Write the book, so.
It's time, baby. It's time. Do you ever, Johnathan, do you ever think that your wife maybe fell in love with you for your brain and not necessarily your body? I'm just curious.
I would like to believe that. I would like to believe that. It's funny. I think she fell in love with me with how I wash dishes, because I'm really anal about dishwashing.
All right, let's hash this out right now, okay? I hate the little insert you put into the sink. I don't like that, because you're just putting dirty dishes into dirty water after the first one goes in there. I use soap like it's going out of style, and a pump, like a half a pump for each dish, and it's got to be. But everybody's like, "Oh, it's like, how can you get it clean if you put it in a dirty water?" I
don't understand people.
Thank you.
I'm so yeah. I'm like,
you.
I have to. I can't even go to bed with a sink full of dishes. I just can't do it. I need it, like, especially when I was on the road, man. I got to inspect every fork, and I wouldn't let anybody, because they just wouldn't do it right. People, they don't clean in between the fork. It's so weird. It's like they're lazy with it. So I'm very meticulous about that.
If you could take the SOS pad out to a beautiful Porsche or a BMW and wipe it on the BMW and not cause any damage, you need to throw that SOS pad out. It's no good. Seriously. It's weave them together for a blanket. They're that soft. That's not the job. No, I thank you. I just It's just, yeah, I have no idea. Write a book about dishwashing. We're going to write a co-author a book on dishwashing. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, he is not only the last ringmaster, he is one of the best ringmasters, greatest people out there. Follow him online. Follow the links. Johnathan Lee Iverson, sir, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. Folks, look for him everywhere. He's like MasterCard everywhere you want to be. And just, YouTube, on Facebook, on the Instagram, because you are on the gram. You're one of the few people.
Oh, yeah, I love Instagram. I love it.
You are on the gram, baby. And looking forward to seeing you next time you make your way up north, or if I make my way down south to catch up there. And we'll put aside the rules as far as, the dietary restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, I appreciate that. I do have to, as always, I have to always give a great shout out to the wonderful people of Rhode Island. And especially your first responders. I mean, I hold that in my heart forever, like just your embrace, that whole community during that terrible time we had. They were just they were heroic to me. I tell people about that all the time. I mean, respect your first responders. These people were just, and I'll say it, and a lot, the ladies who we still keep in contact with, they've said it. Those seconds, those minutes matter. Yeah. And those great people were on it. I mean, they had volunteer nurses who came out of the audience. And I really believe had they not been there in the time and manner that they were, it would have been much worse. It would have been much worse. So I will always be grateful to the great people of Rhode Island and the first responders and everybody who really stood with us during that time. Your service during that is not to be ignored as well. You did a great job. I mean, you really went from hosting the show to hosting crisis management, some people will say, oh, you inspire the confidence, and that was, throughout that whole thing, and you kept. Well, my wife was in my ear. Yeah. She was the production manager at the time, and was so wild. She was only production manager for 2 months before that happened. And, to have that kind of catastrophe on her watch, and she handled it really well. And, she manned that ship. Yeah. And so, she left me to my own devices because, everybody understood how I reacted during crisis. And I don't know where it comes from. I really don't know how, I'm able to do that. I do give glory to God because it's quite fascinating. Yeah. I think of that movie, what is it, The Equalizer? I did so watch. And, they have that scene where, they go to his eye and he calms down right before the fight. And that's just how I feel. I mean, everything kind of calms down and slows down for me. And, I was blessed enough to have that gift to do that, be able to deal in that kind of crisis. But she was really, she manned that ship. Like, she kept that whole cast and crew together and kept everybody from, breaking down. But it was circus, so many people know what to do. The band was on point, the crew, of course. Mm-hmm. They're the anchor of situations like that. Our crew was amazing, and the clown, everybody was just on point, and they knew what to do. And so fortunately everything worked out much better than it could have, or should have. Sure, absolutely. No, it was everything kind of lined up. And then your wife was the great Priscilla. She was controlling it then. And then a week later, when I swear I wasn't stealing the printer, I was helping Kevin. I'm just a dummy with muscles. Hey, I can carry that. Where are you going? Like, I'm sorry. It's just, trust me. I know. Ask Brett. He knows. Brett will vouch for me. The band will. They'll help. Wages, they're all good people. It was great stuff. Folks, go follow him. Tune into his podcast. Subscribe. And just... keep an eye on this great young man. I call you a young man because you really you don't look a day over 27. So Johnathan Lee Iverson, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, man, thank you for having me.